Two couples were spending some time on a boat when suddenly something hit them. The shocks repeated as they freak out. The attack stops and they try to find out what's happening. Suddenly a big shark destroys the ship from underneath and causes them to fall over into the water. They try to swim back to the boat and the shark comes after them ready to attack. Suddenly the creature is shot and caught by a mysterious man. Later we see Dr. Susan McAllister as she heads to her superior's office trying to explain how some test sharks got out of their facility and attacked people. She tries to explain that they are about to make a great breakthrough in science and reactivating human brain cells. Russell, the owner, has enough and decides that he will pull the plug on their research. The woman then shares with him her family's suffering due to her father's having Alzheimer's, and she says that she is about to make a pill that cures the disease and make him a rich man. She asks him to give her 48 hours. Later Russell accompanies the woman on a plane to the facility in the middle of the ocean. There we see the man from before, Carter, who supervises a team dropping the shark he caught into the pool. Russell arrives at the facility and is taken on a tour by Janice, a marine biologist. He sees Carter swimming in the pool and sees a shark coming after him. The man screams to alert the team, but Carter seems to be in control of the situation as he holds onto the shark and removes the license plate stuck in its mouth. After finishing his job, Carter leaves the pool and meets with Russell, who he seems not to like very much. Russell learns that the shark who escaped was a normal shark and that the 3 test sharks were kept in a different pool. The man sees the huge creatures swimming underneath the surface. Carter reveals to Skoggs that the tranquilizers didn't work on the shark and the man is shocked. Carter, who blames the man for letting the creature escape, is told that the gate was closed and that it should have found some other way. Janice takes Russell to the deep layers of the facility where the research is being done on the brain of the sharks. Once again he meets with Carter and turns out Russell knows about his criminal past as a smuggler. But Carter says he already had turned that page and is now playing by the rules. Later Carter goes for a deep dive to watch the sharks being fed and sees them as they got fed a corpse of a dead shark. Brenda, the woman who is watching the radar and communication tools, calls Susan to check a situation on the surface. The woman concerned takes the elevator up and she is met with a surprise birthday party thrown by her colleagues. Through a conversation between Russell and the cook preacher, we learn that the man was once stuck in an avalanche accident while on an expedition to the Alps. When talking to Janice, she explains to him how they were able to grow the brain of the sharks so that they could harvest a protein that is used in making the miracle cure. Meanwhile, Carter shares his concerns with Susan at the behavior of the sharks, how they were hunting in packs and the fact that they were eating only other sharks. The woman asks him to not share the events with Russell or they will all lose their job, reminding him of his background and how it would be unlikely for him to find another job. A strong storm hits the station as the team gathers to do a final test. Carter puts on his diving gears and armed with a spear gun, he dives through a cage tunnel looking for the sharks. He is soon under attack by 2 of them. The man was about to shoot when they suddenly draw back, leaving the team who were watching in shock. More than that, the sharks attack the camera and destroy them. The lights go off and Carter leaves the cage and is followed by a shark. The team fails to contact the man and fears the worst, but we see that he uses his gear as bait and shoots the creature. The shark is then brought through a hatch into the lab, where they use a special gear to extract the protein from its brain that they later test on a brain cell with Alzheimer. The cell regenerates successfully as the team explodes in happiness. As the others discuss their finding, Dr. Jim goes for a smoke near the pool. He sits next to the shark when suddenly it wakes up and snaps its jaw on his arm, cutting it off. The team is horrified and Carter quickly grabs a shotgun and is about to shoot it when Susan hits the button to free the creature, which gets Carter angry. A helicopter is called to take Jim to a hospital. The team pushes through the storm and straps the man to the helicopter's rescue bench. The group then quickly goes back inside the base, while the helicopter team tries to pull the man up, but due to a mechanical failure, the bench falls into the ocean. A strong force starts pulling the helicopter down and it crashes on the facility. The explosion shakes the whole base and destroys the top level entirely. After the shaking stopped, the team found out all the systems were down and Russell noticed something on the big window. The big shark was holding the bench with Jim still alive in its mouth, and swimming fast towards them. It throws the bench at the glass that cracks at the impact. Russell yells at the team to escape as the glass crumbles and the lab is flooded. They all escape and lock up the lab. After finding the stairs flooded and since the elevator was locked, the group was trapped in the second level of the facility. Carter has a plan to escape by going down to the third floor and taking the submarine to the surface. Meanwhile, Preach, who is looking for a way out, is taken by a sudden flood. The group reached a door where something was banging on it from the other side. The door was about to explode, and they all ran to another exit and left just as the area too got flooded. Outside, one of the sharks finds its way into the base through a hole in the facility walls. Russell is shocked at the ability of the sharks to break the steel door and is afraid that they are coming after them. Susan then confesses they had used some genetic modification in order to give the sharks bigger brains and get more protein. Everyone blames her for what happened, but she insists it was all for the greater good. At that time, Preach, who's looking for his bird, is attacked by a shark that swims fast behind him. He escapes and hides in the kitchen where he climbs a shelf to get away from the water. He then finds his bird, who lands on a floating crock pot. When trying to reach the bird, the shark suddenly jumps out of the water, missing Preach and eating the bird. The whole shelf falls into the water. Preach sees the shark coming and hides inside the stove. The team reached their destination only to find the submarine broken in pieces. They all freak out, but Russell tells them they should first put on their wet suits to avoid hypothermia. Meanwhile, the shark relentlessly keeps attacking the stove with Preach inside until it turns on. To avoid getting cooked alive, Preach uses an axe to make a hole and escapes from the top while the shark is busy. He then throws a lighter on the stove and explodes the creature into pieces. The explosion is felt by the other group, who had put on their wetsuit, and two options lies before them. Following Carter, who wants to swim through the pool to get out, risking running into the sharks, or Cog's option to take the stairs to the surface, even though they don't know how it looks after the many explosions. More than that, if there is damage to the airlock, they risk being crushed by the water pressure. Susan refuses to let him open the door and they start to scream at each other until Russell intervenes. He tells them that after his last survival experience, he learned that human nature is the worst thing in these kinds of situations. The man gives a speech that lifts up the spirit of the group, but then suddenly, Russell is ripped to shreds by the sharks, and the group is left in shock. Skoggs, under shock, wants to sit and wait for help to come, but Carter tells him that it's not an option, since the whole structure will soon collapse. Now all on the same page, they opened the locked door and as expected it screwed up the pressure inside the room. Quickly, they left and sealed the door, stopping the flooding. The group starts climbing the long ladder while the sharks try to break through the door. Carter is afraid that once they break the door, the sharks would quickly reach them if the water quickly rises. So he wants to open the door to the second level, so that the water can flood into it instead of keep rising. So while the others kept climbing, he climbed down, and just as the sharks broke in, and the water rose, he pried the door open, and resumed climbing, avoiding the attacks of the shark. But again the shaking of the whole structure as it crumbles causes the ladder to fall down, bringing everyone with it. After Janice fell in the water, Carter attempted to save her by reaching out to her, but the shark got to her first. There was a moment of shock before they started hearing banging on the upper door. Thinking it was a shark, they all braced themselves, but it turned out it was Preach. The man is shocked that they had lost so many people. He tells them that the stairway was flooded, and they almost lost hope, but Carter has a way to drain the stairway. But first they needed to get to the generator back in the lab. Carter and Skoggs leave Susan and Preach and head to put the plan in work. The two swim to their destination where they find a body in the water and freak out. The two men manage to get to the backup generator and successfully activate it. Their happy success is cut short when a shark attacks Skoggs, tearing the man up. Carter escapes the lab, avoiding being eaten alive. Susan, who wants to retrieve the experiment data, leaves Preach alone and heads out to her quarters. When Carter came back, he and Preach mourn the loss of their friend Skoggs, and Carter learns that Susan had left. The woman manages to find her data disks. She is freaked out by what turns out to be a shark corpse. But then, a living one appears and attacks her. In her attempt to get to safety, she drops her batch of disks in the water. As she attempts to retrieve it, she almost loses her arm. Susan then has an idea. She detaches an electrical cable, and stands on her suit made of insulating material. Then after the sharks popped out of the water, she threw the cable in his mouth and fries the creature. Once it was over, she meets with Carter and Preach and learns about Scoggins' death. Carter then takes them to the only exit left, where they need to flood the room, hold their breath and swim to the surface. After giving him the heads up, Carter opens the valve, and water starts flooding the small room. Once full, he opens a hatch and they start swimming up, but a shark spots them. Carter uses an oxygen bottle as decoy to trick the shark in attacking it. They all get to the surface, but a shark grabs Preach from the legs and drags him underwater. The man uses his cross and stabs the shark repeatedly, until finally it lets him go. Carter then quickly grabs Preach and pulls him out of the water. After taking care of Preach's wounds, Susan is told by Carter that the sharks used them to flood the facility, so that they would be able to go over the fence and escape. The big shark then suddenly starts crashing into the fence. Carter grabbed the spear guns, and he crafts an explosive that he attaches to the spear and attaches the ends of the wires to a battery, to use as detonator. When he tries to shoot, the man finds that the shark was very far. Susan then slashes her palm and jumps in the water. The shark stops and turns around, heading toward her. Susan swims back and gets to a ladder, but when about to climb, the ladder breaks and she falls back. Carter jumps and swims to get to her, but the shark is faster, as it snaps its jaws on her. Carter watches her getting eaten. The shark then goes after him, but he avoids the attack and holds onto its fin as it swims around. Preach drags himself to the spear gun and uses it to shoot the shark. The spear hits the fin, and Carter screams at him to activate the battery and detonate the explosive. The shark dives with Carter and swims through the hole in the fence, while Preach detonates the bomb, resulting in a big explosion that turns the shark into sushi pieces and leaves a big puddle of blood on the surface of the water. Carter, who survived the explosion, is helped out of the water by Preach. The man promises that he will quit this job, just as the two see help arriving. And with that we reached the end of the movie. Thank you for watching, leave a like if you liked it, and see you guys next time, bye bye.